Welcome back to True Crime Buzz. I'm your host, Brittany, and with me, as always, is Amber.
Hello.
What are we drinking tonight?
Well, I did have a huge glass of Rex Goliath Pinot Grigio, but someone had some computer problems, and now it's about gone. So I'm going to pre-apologize for any slurring that I do tonight.
Well, my bad. You guys can blame that on me if it gets really bad.
It's not your fault, though. Your computer...
Oh, it's trash.
Yeah, it just needs a little TLC. We'll get it fixed.
I want to take it to the woods and beat it with like a sledgehammer, but instead I'm going to bring it to your husband and let him fix it.
But yeah, don't do that because we do need to put out some episodes and I look forward to our weekly recordings, so don't do that.
Oh yeah, I would never. It's just the urge that I have, you know?
Yeah, no, I feel you. What are you drinking?
Well, I'm drinking Diet Sam's Cola, but in my fancy Diet Coke, what would you call this? A tumbler that you got me that
It's
you
like
put
a little koozie. It's like an insulated...
Yeah, but it's glittery and it's like hard. It's amazing.
It's the most.
It is.
I got her this little insulated koozie thing. I'll post it on our social media just in case anyone's interested. But I got it off Etsy and it says Diet Coke, but it's like all glittery and extra. And on the other side, what does it say? Share a Coke with Brittany?
Yes, I love it.
You can personalize it to have your name. I saw it and I was like, I can't not get this for her. I'm glad it was your birthday because you would have got it either way.
Well, you went above and beyond. This girl got me an Eileen Wuornos birthday card, the Diet Coke tumbler, possum socks, because if you don't know, I'm obsessed with possums. We used to have a pet possum when I was a kid, and I loved
Georgia.
them. Yes, and then a free Britney shirt. And I have to tell you, my 7-year-old daughter asked if she could have that shirt when she gets older.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute.
Yes, girl. Yes, you could have it when you get older.
You tell her she's got a free Britney shirt coming her way.
Okay, I will tell her. Oh, you know, she's going to love that. Anything from Aunt Grace is the best.
So as far as like personal true crimes, I've been sitting here racking my brain and I really don't have any this week. It's been a really good week.
Well, how lucky for you.
All right, we'll get to yours in a second. But I thought for times that we do have good weeks and we have nothing to bitch about, we should just say, I don't have a personal true crime, but what should be a true crime is ...
Okay.
And so I've been thinking, and speaking of possums, I think it should be a true crime that you cannot legally have a raccoon as a pet in North Carolina. I think that's bullshit. I've wanted nothing more in my life than just a little pet raccoon with his little bandit eyes and his little grabby hands. God, I want one so bad. And it's illegal.
It's illegal in North Carolina?
Yeah, it is.
Even if you like...
Oh, you know I've done the research.
Okay, well, I meant like if you find one that's injured, you can't just like...
You're supposed to turn it into like a rescue or a wildlife place. Yeah. You best believe if I ever find a baby one, that I'm going to keep it. I'm just saying legally.
I don't know if I was supposed to own a possum or not either, but its mom died and we just found it. So,
right.
You know.
Well, technically it's illegal. So I follow all these raccoon Instagram accounts, you know, where they have like a pet.
Yes.
I follow Tito, Cheeto.
Did you ever follow Pumpkin?
Pumpkin, yes. I follow all of them. But they all live, like, one lives in the Bahamas, one lives in, I want to say Alabama or somewhere. But either way, it's legal there.
Well, you know, so my cousin Holly, who you know, she's, like, obsessed with raccoons, too. And that's her dream pet. And it's legal in Nevada, where she lives. And
it's legal in Nevada?
Her husband will not let her have one. I'm like, come on, dude.
It's legal in Nevada to have a raccoon.
Yeah.
And Las Vegas is in Nevada, which is my favorite place in the world. So I guess I'm going to have to move.
Oh,
Would you still love me if I lived all the way across the country in Las Vegas?
Yes, because you would be having your dream of a raccoon, and I support you in your dreams.
That's a real best friend right there.
Telling you.
All right, enough about me and my raccoons. What's your personal true crime of the week?
Well, okay. It's going to be 2 in 1.
Okay.
Okay. Which is that I woke up, okay, I knew beforehand that they were doing scheduled maintenance to our power and that the power would be shut off from 4 to 6. But I woke up at 6:45 to it still off, which I wouldn't stress about because I saw them up there working on it. You know, they're doing their job. No worries. But we didn't have water. And we didn't have water because the power people blew some kind of wire to the well pump. And so we didn't have water for half the day.
And I'm on a well, so I understand the struggle. And that's the worst.
It was the absolute worst, especially having such a small child. You know, my youngest is 2, and I can't just load her up on apple juice all day unless I want her to shit her pants. So I was not thrilled. Not thrilled. And I try not to drink bottled water because, plastic bottles, it's not good for the environment. And so I didn't have any bottled waters. So this poor child. Oh, it was rough.
But she made it, and everything's good now, right?
Oh, yeah. About noon, I started loading her up with water to try to get that juice out of her system. I mean, as you guys know, I don't really drink water, but I make sure my kids drink water.
That's a good mom.
I don't want them to have caffeine addictions.
No offense to my mom, but I was never forced to drink water as a child, and that's why it is a struggle to do it now.
Girl, no, that's
What?
not true though, because I was only allowed to have sodas like on birthdays or special occasions growing up, and I'm completely addicted now and don't drink water. So I really think it's just who you are as a person.
Okay, never mind. I'm sorry, Mom. I love you so much. Yeah, caffeine addiction is real. When people talk about like they can't get off heroin or meth or whatever, I'm like, I can't imagine because I can't even quit caffeine.
No, I feel that.
All right, well, anyways, let's get to the real true crime today.
Yes. Tell me this story because I know nothing about it. I had never heard about it. And you have been so mysterious when you talk about it. So I'm dying to know. Ready for it.
Well, let me just tell you first off, I wanted to cover a lesser known case because I feel like I've done a lot of really well known cases lately and we like to mix it up. So,
yes,
I was on Google just trying to find some sort of true crime case. And let me tell you, I swear to God, I Googled for an hour and every case I came across, 90% of them were child crimes, either child abuse or child murders. And I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea. I know you're fine with it as long as I do the research and you don't, but I just couldn't do that to you. I'm not trying to look up like a child murderer right off the bat.
Well, just know I'll be okay.
I know, but it was like, can we find something that's not child related? And unfortunately today does involve children and I'm very sorry, but it's one that is still currently active. So I thought it was a good one to cover because I'm all here for active cases because I want them to get solved. I want them to find these assholes. I want to bring them to justice. So here we are, folks.
Absolutely.
Last month, April 2021, marked 20 years since the horrific murders of a mother and her 2 children. And while suspect number 1 has been identified, he has still not been found 20 years later. Is that not crazy?
That's insane.
He is on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. And for good reason, because this guy is a straight up asshole. On the morning of April 10th, 2001, a literal explosion of flames and smoke ripped apart a family home in southern Scottsdale, Arizona. The explosion was so strong that it forced the front brick wall to immediately collapse and rattled the frames of all the neighboring houses within a half-mile radius.
What?
And as expected, everyone decided to call 911.
911 emergency. 74th Street North, there's just an explosion off of Holly and a fire. Big fire. Can you see it? Big fire. You bet I can see it. Some house just exploded and ignited on fire.
Were there people inside the house?
Yes, there are. They're probably dead.
Firefighters were on the scene within minutes and were able to put the fire out, but the house just could not be saved. It burned completely to the ground. Once the smoke cleared, authorities discovered 3 burned bodies inside the house, still laying in their beds, a woman and 2 children. The victims were later identified as Mary Fisher, 38, and her 2 children, Brittany Fisher, age 12, and Robert Fisher Jr., age 10.
Wow, and you said this was in 2001?
Yes, 20 years ago.
You know, when I was 12 and I was Brittany.
Wait, were you really 12 in 2001?
Yes.
I have too much wine to be doing the math.
We were in 7th grade.
7th grade was horrible, so I try to block that out of my memories. You were correct, though. 2001, that was the worst year for me. That was the year of the 9/11. That was the year of just all the things. You're right. So after the smoke had cleared, they quickly confirmed that the 3 bodies were laying in pools of blood, so they had not died in the fire.
Ooh.
Wounds confirmed that they were actually victims of a very gruesome murder. Mary had a gunshot wound to the back of her head, and all of the throats of all 3 were slashed from ear to ear, so deeply they were almost decapitated, and this happened just hours before the home went up in flames.
Guess at least they went quickly.
But there's a mother and 2 children. Someone seemed to be missing from this family tragedy. the father and the husband, Robert Fisher.
Ooh.
Robert William Fisher was born on April 13th, 1961 in Brooklyn, New York, to parents William and Jan Fisher, and grew up with 2 sisters. There's not a lot of background on him, but from what I know, he had a pretty normal childhood. The only thing I could really find was that his parents unfortunately divorced in 1976 when he was just 15, and this was reportedly very difficult on him. He did go on to graduate from Sapporo High School in 1979, which is actually where he met his future wife, Mary Cooper, and they became high school sweethearts.
Aww.
After high school, he decided to enlist in the Navy, where he served as a petty officer on the USS Blue Wood in San Diego until 1982. After he got out of the Navy, Robert became a firefighter in San Diego County, but had to switch careers because he had a really bad back and had to have major back surgery. So instead of being a firefighter, which is a very physical job, he became a respiratory therapist.
Okay.
In 1987, after a long time of dating, Robert and Mary decided to make things official and got married. Shortly after tying the knot, the couple purchased a home to be near Mary's parents in Scottsdale, Arizona. About a year later, they had a little girl that they named Brittany, and a couple years later had a son that they named Robert Jr., who they called Bobby for short. When the kids were old enough to start going to school, Mary decided to go back to work part-time for a friend's small medical company called H&L Medical Specialists. Both Robert and Mary were very active members of their church, which was Scottsdale Baptist Church, and raised their children in a religious household. So thus far, everything seems very normal, very positive.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, like a very good life.
This is just like your normal everyday family.
But in regards to family life with Robert, I found mixed reports. In one, he was described as a very cruel person, a control freak of a father. He was very distant with his children behind closed doors. But on the outside, held this image of being a very loving and devoted family man.
That's how most abusers are. They're great on the outside. Nobody could ever believe they'd abuse somebody. And behind closed doors, they're complete monsters. So
Exactly. That's what I took from it.
Yep.
So depending on who you ask, he was either a horrible person, a control freak. If you ask someone else, they're like, oh my gosh, he was the best family man. They went to church every Sunday. And you and I both know that doesn't mean anything. You don't know somebody behind closed doors.
no, you don't.
And I even saw they released family footage that they recorded back in the day before all this happened. And he did seem, at least on tape, like a very sweet, loving dad, playing with the kids in the pool, playing with the dog.
Well, too, abusers, it's not a constant every day. I mean, there's a honeymoon phase. So, there's abuse, there's all this, and then lots of apologizing. I'll never do this again.
That's true.
Things are
That's
really
true.
good for a while until it explodes again. So, could have been
Right.
one of those, or he could have known he was being recorded.
That too. But we'll never know. The only ones who know are unfortunately deceased. When interviewed, his mother-in-law, Mary's mother, Guinea Cooper, told investigators that Robert, quote, didn't socialize often with the family, and that Mary had been a yes sir wife who never stood up to her husband. So regardless, it just didn't sound like a very happy marriage.
No, it did not.
And the couple were known to have problems. So in 1998, they officially decided to go to their church's senior pastor for marital counseling. Allegedly, Robert had told coworkers about a one-night stand that he had with a prostitute that he met in a massage parlor. This is all hearsay. When interviewed, the senior pastor, obviously he will not say what their problems were because that's confidential.
Right.
But word on the street was he was having an affair, and he was worried that his wife would find out because it was the cause of a very painful UTI. Which, that's what you get. Later on, Robert also told one of his hunting buddies that he was renewing his commitment to both his faith and his marriage because he, quote, could not live without his family, which sounds real sweet until you know how the story ends.
Yeah, and then it just seems really creepy and foreshadowing.
Yes, like if I can't have you, no one can have you kind of thing.
That's right. Today's episode is presented by Brush. Brush is an electric toothbrush that will change the way you think about brushing your teeth. With powerful sonic technology and ultra-gentle bristles, the Brush redefines what it means to have super clean teeth. It's like that feeling when you just leave the dentist, a fresh, whole mouth clean, every single day. Our listeners get 15% off their total purchase with code POD15. Follow the link in the show notes and enter the code POD15 to get your exclusive discount and upgrade your oral care routine.
In the weeks before her death, Mary also told several of her friends that she was thinking about divorce and that there were rumors of the affair going around that Robert had with a coworker.
Creep.
So, what happened? What brought us to that tragedy? Well, nobody knows for sure, but here is what we do know as far as the events leading up to it. The day before, on April 9th, 2001, Robert went to work as usual. He worked at the Scottsdale's Mayo Clinic as a respiratory therapist. At the end of his shift, he picked up his 12-year-old daughter, Brittany, and drove her to the National Junior Honor Society induction ceremony at her school.
Yes, Brittany!
But allegedly, Robert seemed agitated, and the two left before Brittany could ever collect her reward.
Well, that's sad.
Meanwhile, Mary took their 10-year-old son, Bobby, to a gun safety class. So both parents kind of had each kid doing their own things.
Okay.
After Mary and Robert came home that evening, neighbors reported hearing them arguing and yelling very loudly around 9:30 to 10:15 at night.
Somebody should have called the law.
You would think, especially a good nosy neighbor, you know they're going to call the law.
Yeah. They called the law for less.
Exactly. But unfortunately, that did not happen in this situation. I don't know how often these people argued. Like maybe this was just a weekly occurrence. I don't know.
Yeah.
But either way, nobody informed the law. And so that brings us to the morning of the tragedy on April 10th of 2001. So fire investigators determined that the blast seemed to start in the living room and that the subsequent fire from that blast finished off what was left of the house. The official cause of the explosion was from an unhooked gas line that someone had placed a candle or some sort of flame in front of on a nearby table and then poured fire accelerant down the hallway of the home. So whoever did this, Robert, unhooked the gas line, poured fire accelerant down the hallway, and then set something there so that it would later explode after Robert had left.
I tell you, he's real lucky he didn't get blown up.
Well, he was a firefighter, if you remember. So he laid this out. He knew what he was doing so that the evidence and everything that was left over other than the bodies would be completely burned up after he left. And we don't know for sure it was him. It just isn't a good look when your family is murdered to death and you are nowhere to be found 20 years later.
True.
So, not only was Robert missing, but police also confirmed that their dog Blue was missing, the family SUV was missing, a majority of his clothes, and his .38 caliber revolver.
Okay, like, is somebody seriously out here just questioning if it was Robert? It was Robert. It was the husband. Damn it, Bobby.
There are people that question if it was really Robert, yes.
Oh my God. Who hurt them? Who hurt these people?
There are people who think someone came in and murdered this family and stole Robert and like murdered him somewhere else and we haven't found his body yet. There are people out there who fully believe that.
To be fair, if you think about like the McVeigh family, for the longest people like thought that they were in trouble and they ran, and come to find out this dude came and like murdered their whole family, and that was awful. So I guess, I mean, it is possible, but that's not what happened.
If it looks like a chicken, it clucks like a chicken, it's a fucking chicken.
It's a fucking duck. Duck, duck, goose, bitch. You're it. You did it.
Oh, and it gets even worse. It gets even worse. Later on, police find that Robert's face was actually on a surveillance camera around 10:40 p.m. the night of the murders, where he withdrew $280 from an ATM machine at the local Wells Fargo bank in Scottsdale. Not a good look, bro.
It's him. He did it.
In the footage, he's wearing an Oakland Raiders hat, go Raiders, and driving the family SUV, a silver 2000 Toyota 4Runner. Several days later, on April 13th, a statewide bulletin is issued for his arrest, because either way, he knows something or he's involved. I mean, hello.
Right.
On April 20th, just 10 days after the tragedy, police discovered the 4Runner on a dirt road about 100 miles north of Scottsdale in Tonto National Forest. It was barely covered in pine needles from the trees above it, so police speculated it was there less than 24 hours. The only thing in the entire vehicle was Robert's Oakland Raiders hat that he was wearing in the ATM footage. But wouldn't you know it, the car was insanely clean of any fingerprints, hair, or any other DNA. Like someone had just wiped it down before leaving it.
Imagine that. Wiped it down and left it there to be covered in Satan's glitter, aka pine needles.
You got that right, sis. The only happy part of this entire story is that underneath the SUV, all curled up, was the family dog Blue, who was completely unharmed. Hallelujah.
Thank God. Thank God. Yes, Blue.
Other than being just a little bit skittish and dehydrated, but otherwise unharmed. So I'm glad the dog made it. I hate the family died. It's a tragedy. I say tragedy 5 million times in this episode. I'm glad the dog made it. There were size 13 footprints found leading away from the Forerunner into a cave nearby in the forest. So there was some suspicion that he may have wandered into the woods to commit suicide. Like maybe he had a breaking moment. You know, him and his wife obviously didn't have a great relationship. Maybe they got into an argument, things got out of hand, and he snapped. And maybe he drove off and realized, oh my God, what have I done? And so he decides to go hide and commit suicide.
Okay.
That was a theory. However, search teams went to work for weeks in one of the state's most intensive manhunts ever, climbing rocks, looking in limestone caves, literally every hole and nook and cranny. But there was no sign of Robert or any evidence that he was there.
Wow. He just vanished into thin air.
Just vanished. FBI Special Agent Robert Caldwell said, quote, "Some say he's dead, but we don't believe that he's the type of guy who would kill himself. He's a very egocentric, very introverted person, so we really don't believe he would do that," end quote.
That part.
And I agree.
I 1,000% agree.
If he is the type of person to straight up murder his entire family and then try to get away, like, you've already come this far, you're not going to kill yourself.
Yeah. No, I mean, he, like, covered it up with an explosion.
Yeah. He knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. Even if he did truly snap and then come to and realize the horrible thing he's done, no, I just don't believe it.
I don't either.
So, on July 19th, 2001, Arizona State Superior Court issued an arrest warrant and officially indicted Robert with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of arson. And the U.S. District Court couldn't agree more. They declared Robert a fugitive and issued a federal arrest warrant for the District of Arizona, charging him with unlawful flight to avoid prosecution.
Okay. Coming in hot with those charges.
After about a year, on June 29th, 2002, he was officially listed as the 475th fugitive on the FBI Most Wanted list, along with a reward of up to $100,000 for any information leading to his capture, and has been featured on several episodes of America's Most Wanted. In February of 2004, an individual with a striking physical resemblance to Robert Fisher was arrested in Vancouver, up in Canada, by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. He had the same bone structure, he was around the same age, he had the short hair, he even had a similar surgical scar on his lower back. He was even missing a tooth in the place where Robert had a gold tooth. Like, they thought they had their guy, but they did fingerprints, and it turned out it was not Robert, so he was released.
What?
Yeah.
Do you think he altered his fingerprints?
That's another theory that I kept seeing. There's a whole Reddit feed on this dude, and as there should be, because he's been missing for 20 years. But people are trying to say, like, why did they not do a full DNA search? Not just fingerprints, but like a cheek swab, everything.
Yeah, because you can mess up your fingerprints on purpose.
Right, but the guy, which they won't name for privacy reasons, but the guy that they arrested and thought was him, his attorney came forward and made several comments about how he was the wrong guy, he was treated unfairly, and his fingerprints prove who he is, and all this stuff, and that he was harassed and this whole spiel, so...
Well, too, they can tell if you've messed up your fingerprints. I mean, it's not like...
They can.
I mean, if you've burned your fingerprints, people know.
Yeah, or if you have, like, a big cut through the middle, like, you can tell. But they were saying it was very clear that this was not the guy.
Okay.
And there is a video, a YouTube video that I will link in our show notes, where Arizona News does a 20-year later coverage of this whole thing, and it's really well done. It's like a really short 15-minute documentary about the case and what happened. They don't release his name, but they do have his pictures with, like, his eyes blurred out. And just his jaw structure alone, you can kind of tell it wasn't him. Okay. At least for me.
Well, I'll trust you on it and watch it later.
As of today, the FBI has received hundreds of leads and still says that they receive 2 to 3 leads every week. However, all of them have turned out to be inconclusive or false. And that is unfortunately where the story ends. He is still on the FBI list, but he is in the top 10 If you Google FBI top 10 most wanted, his ugly mug is right there for the world to see.
Boy, if any of y'all have seen old Bobby Fischer, y'all alert the authorities, okay? Because this needs to be dealt with.
Exactly. So yes, we do need your help. Like I said, the FBI is offering a reward for up to $100,000 for information. He is considered armed and extremely dangerous. He has ties to Arizona, Florida, and New Mexico, but could literally be anywhere in the continental U.S. He's an avid outdoorsman. He likes to hunt and fish, so he's very familiar with the outdoors and can survive on his own anywhere. He is 6 feet tall, approximately 190 pounds. He has blue eyes, short light brown to dirty blonde hair, light complexion, medium build. At the time of the murder, he was 40 years old, but as of today, if he's still alive, he would be 60 years old as of today. So he may look completely different. He may have gray or white hair. He may even be bald. He may have gained weight. We don't know.
Wrinkles.
Yes.
Well, it's entirely possible he later died, but I don't think it was from suicide.
If he did, or if he's still alive, either way, people think he's living somewhere else under an assumed identity. There are telltale signs, though. If this is really Robert Fisher, he does have those scars on his lower back from surgery and probably walks with an exaggerated posture and his chest pushed out. So he has a very specific gait because of his back surgery. And you can't fool that.
Yeah.
He does have a gold crown on his upper left bicuspid tooth.
He could have pulled that tooth out, so...
The guy earlier, yeah, he had a missing tooth in that spot. So that's why they thought they had him, because he took it out. But it wasn't him.
Yeah.
So if any of this sounds familiar, or if you have any tips at all, please contact your local FBI office, or even contact the FBI Phoenix office. You can contact them online anonymously, or you can call them at 623-466-1999. Love our podcast? Then hit that subscribe button and leave us a review.
We're also on Patreon. Head on over to patreon.com/truecrimebuzz and join today for access to all our exclusive content, including bonus episodes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at TC Buzz Podcast.
And check out our website at www.truecrimebuzz.com.
Until next time,
Cheers!